Still alone, I see. Meanwhile, I'm starting a real family this year. Derek laughed, his arm around his new girlfriend at the family New Year's party. Carmen just smiled. 10, 9, 8, everyone counted. At midnight, the door burst open. 3 identical children ran through the crowd. "Mommy! Happy New Year!" They jumped into Carmen's arms. Derek's champagne glass dropped. The triplets turned around. They had his eyes, his smile, his dimples. The girlfriend looked at them, then at Derek. "You told me she was infertile." But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "Mommy, red is the best color in the whole world." "No, Emma. Blue is better. Blue is the best." "You are both wrong. Yellow is the prettiest." Carmen Rodriguez stood at the stove making scrambled eggs. Behind her, her 3 children sat at the small kitchen table. They were arguing about colors. This happened every morning. Emma was 4 years old. She loved the color red. Lucas was also 4 years old. He loved blue. Sophie was 4 years old too. She loved yellow. They were triplets. They looked similar, but acted different. Carmen put eggs on 3 plastic plates. She added toast. She brought the plates to the table. She said, "Eat your breakfast. Stop arguing." Emma picked up her fork. She said, "But Mommy, red is the best. Tell Lucas red is the best." Carmen sat down with her own plate. She said, "All colors are good. Now eat." Lucas took a bite of toast. He said, "When I am bigger, I will paint everything blue." Sophie said, "I will paint everything yellow." Emma said, "I will paint everything red." Carmen drank her coffee. She was tired. She woke up at 6 o'clock this morning. She always woke up at 6 o'clock. The triplets woke up at 6:30. Carmen made breakfast. She helped them get dressed. She brushed their teeth. She combed their hair. Every day was the same routine. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that connected to the living room. Carmen slept in 1 bedroom. The triplets shared the other bedroom. 3 small beds lined up against the wall. The apartment was in Lincoln Park. It was a neighborhood in Chicago, Illinois. Carmen paid $1,500 every month for rent. It was a lot of money. But the neighborhood was safe. The school nearby was good. That mattered more than money. Carmen looked at the clock on the wall. It was 7:15. Her sister Rosa would arrive soon. Rosa watched the triplets every day while Carmen worked. Rosa was 28 years old. She was 4 years younger than Carmen. Rosa worked from home. She was a graphic designer. She made websites and logos on her computer. She could work anywhere. So she came to Carmen's apartment every morning. At 7:25, there was a knock on the door. Carmen opened it. Rosa stood in the hallway holding a bag. She smiled. She said, "Good morning." The triplets jumped up from the table. They ran to Rosa. They hugged her legs. All 3 of them talked at the same time. "Aunt Rosa, I want to build a castle today." "Aunt Rosa, can we watch the singing show?" "Aunt Rosa, I want to draw pictures." Rosa laughed. She said, "Okay, we will do everything, but let your mom leave first." Carmen grabbed her purse and her work bag. She kissed each child on the head. She said, "Be good for Aunt Rosa. I will be home at 4 o'clock." Emma said, "Okay, Mommy." Lucas said, "Bye, Mommy." Sophie said, "I love you, Mommy." Carmen said, "I love you too, all of you." She walked out the door. She walked down 3 flights of stairs. She got into her car. It was a blue Honda. It was old. It made strange noises sometimes, but it worked. Carmen drove through the streets of Lincoln Park. She drove for 15 minutes. She arrived at Lincoln Elementary School. She parked in the teacher parking lot. She walked inside the building. Carmen taught 3rd grade. Her classroom was on the 2nd floor, room 207. She had 23 students this year. Their names were on a chart on the wall. Carmen loved teaching. She loved watching children learn. She loved helping them when they struggled. Teaching was the one thing that made sense in her life. The school day started at 8:30. Children walked into the classroom. They hung up their coats. They sat at their desks. Carmen took attendance. She said, "Good morning, class." The children said, "Good morning, Miss Rodriguez." Carmen taught math first, then reading, then science. The morning went fast. At 11:45, the children went to lunch. Carmen stayed in her classroom. She ate a sandwich she brought from home. She looked at her phone. Rosa had sent pictures. Emma was drawing a flower. Lucas was building a tower with blocks. Sophie was singing into a toy microphone. Carmen smiled. Her children were happy. That was all that mattered. The afternoon went fast, too. Carmen taught social studies, then art. At 3:15, the school day ended. Children put on their coats. They lined up at the door. Parents picked them up. Carmen said goodbye to each student. Then she cleaned her classroom. She erased the board. She organized papers. At 3:45, she left the school. Carmen drove home. She parked on the street outside her apartment building. She walked up the 3 flights of stairs. She opened the door. Immediately, 3 small bodies ran toward her. "Mommy! Mommy, you are home! Mommy, look what I made!" Carmen knelt down. She hugged all 3 children at once. She said, "I missed you." Rosa was sitting on the couch with her laptop. She said, "They were great today. Lucas built a castle. Emma drew 6 pictures. Sophie learned a new song." Carmen said, "Thank you for watching them." Rosa said, "You don't have to thank me. I love them." Rosa packed her laptop into her bag. She hugged the children goodbye. She said, "I will see you tomorrow." After Rosa left, Carmen made dinner. She cooked chicken and rice. The triplets sat at the table. Emma colored in a coloring book. Lucas played with small toy cars. Sophie hummed a song. Carmen put food on 4 plates. They ate together. The children talked about their day. They told Carmen everything they did. Carmen listened. She asked questions. She smiled. At 6:30, there was another knock on the door. Carmen opened it. Her mother stood in the hallway. Teresa Rodriguez was 62 years old. She had gray hair and brown eyes. She was holding 2 containers of food. She said, "I made rice and beans, and I made flan for dessert." The triplets jumped up again. They loved their grandmother. Teresa kissed each child. She said, "My beautiful babies, how are you today?" Emma said, "I drew pictures, Grandma." Lucas said, "I built a castle, Grandma." Sophie said, "I learned a song, Grandma. Do you want to hear it?" Teresa said, "Yes, I want to hear everything." They all sat in the living room. Teresa listened to each child. She looked at Emma's drawings. She listened to Sophie sing. She looked at pictures of Lucas's castle on Rosa's phone. Carmen sat on the couch watching. Her mother visited twice a week, sometimes more. Teresa helped Carmen a lot. Carmen could not raise 3 children alone without help. After an hour, Lucas climbed onto Carmen's lap. He looked up at her. He said, "Mommy, where is my daddy?" Carmen's heart hurt every time one of her children asked this question. She said, "Your daddy was a man named Robert. He loved music. He played the piano." Lucas said, "Where is he now?" Carmen said, "He died before you were born. There was a car accident. He went to heaven." Lucas said, "Does he know about me?" Carmen said, "Yes, baby. He knows about you. He loved you very much. He loved all three of you." Lucas seemed satisfied with this answer. He climbed off Carmen's lap. He went back to playing with his toy cars. Carmen looked at her mother. Teresa's face was sad. She knew the truth. The truth was complicated. Teresa cleared her throat. She said, "Carmen, I need to talk to you about something." Carmen said, "Okay." Teresa said, "I am having a party on New Year's Eve at my house. The whole family will be there." Carmen already knew where this was going. She said, "Mama, I don't think I can come." Teresa said, "You say that every time. You never come to family events anymore." Carmen said, "I am busy. I have the kids." Teresa said, "Bring the kids. Everyone wants to meet them." Carmen felt her chest get tight. She said, "I don't think that is a good idea." Teresa said, Why not? They are part of this family. You are part of this family. You cannot hide forever." Carmen said, "I am not hiding." Teresa gave her a look. It was a look that said, "Yes, you are." Teresa said, "Carmen, it has been 5 years. You need to face people. You need to stop letting that man control your life." Carmen knew who Teresa meant. Derek, her ex-husband. Derek Mitchell, the man who destroyed her. The man who told everyone she was broken. The man who told everyone she could not have children. Carmen had not seen Derek in 4 years. She avoided places where he might be. She did not go to family parties because Derek's family knew her family. Someone always invited him. Teresa said, "I need you to come to this party. Please, for me." Carmen said, "I will think about it." Teresa said, "That is what you always say. Then you do not come." Carmen said, "I will really think about it this time." Teresa looked at her for a long moment. Then she stood up. She kissed the children goodbye. She kissed Carmen on the forehead. She said, "I love you, mija. I want you to be free. You cannot be free if you keep hiding." After Teresa left, Carmen gave the triplets a bath. She put them in pajamas. She read them a bedtime story. She tucked them into their 3 small beds. She turned off the light. She went to her own room. She sat on her bed. She thought about what her mother said. Hiding. Was that what she was doing? Yes, she was hiding. She had been hiding for 4 years, ever since the triplets were born. She kept them secret from everyone except Rosa and Teresa. She did not post pictures online. She did not bring them to family events. She was protecting them. She was protecting herself. But Teresa was right. Carmen could not hide forever. The triplets were getting older. They would start asking more questions soon. They would want to know about their family. They deserved to know their aunts and uncles and cousins. Carmen picked up her phone. She opened her messages. She found Teresa's name. She typed 3 words. Her finger hovered over the send button. She took a deep breath. Then she pressed send. The message said, "I will come." Teresa's phone made a sound. She picked it up. She read the message. Her eyes went wide. She read it again. "I will come." 3 words. Teresa sat down on her couch. She could not believe it. Carmen was coming to the party. After 4 years of saying no, Carmen finally said yes. Teresa's hands shook as she typed back. "Really? You will really come?" A minute passed. Then Carmen answered, "Yes, Mama, I will really come." Teresa smiled. Tears came to her eyes. She wiped them away. She typed another message. "Can I call you?" Her phone rang immediately. Carmen was calling. Teresa answered. She said, "Mija, I am so happy." Carmen's voice sounded calm. She said, "I have been thinking about what you said. You are right. I cannot hide forever. Teresa said, the whole family will be so happy to see you. And the children. Everyone will love meeting Emma, Lucas, and Sophie. There was a pause. Then Carmen said, Actually, Mama, I have a plan. I need you to listen carefully. Teresa said, Okay, I am listening. Carmen said, I will come to the party, but I will come alone first. Teresa said, Alone? What about the children? Carmen said, Rosa will stay home with them. But then, right before midnight, Rosa will bring them to your house. Teresa did not understand. She said, Why? Why not just bring them with you? Carmen said, Because I want people to see me first. I want to be there when Derek arrives. Teresa understood now. She said, Derek will be there. His mother, Patricia, told me he wants to come. Carmen said, I know. That is why I want to do it this way. Teresa said, What exactly are you planning, mija? Carmen said, I am going to let Derek say whatever he wants to say. I am going to let him talk about Madison's pregnancy. I am going to let him think he won. And then, at midnight, everyone will see the truth. Teresa was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing. She said, Oh, Carmen, you are your father's daughter. He would be so proud. Carmen said, Will you help me? Teresa said, Of course. Anything you need. Carmen said, Do not tell anyone about the children. Not yet. Let it be a surprise. Teresa said, I will not say a word. I promise. They talked for a few more minutes. Then Carmen hung up. Teresa sat on her couch smiling. She could not wait for New Year's Eve. The next morning, Teresa started making phone calls. She called her sisters first. She called Lucia and Maria and Rosa's mother, Isabella. She said, Carmen is coming to the New Year's Eve party. Her sisters were shocked. They were happy. They asked questions. Teresa answered some questions, but not all. She did not mention the triplets. She promised Carmen she would not. Teresa called her brothers. She called her cousins. She called everyone in the family. She said, Please come to my New Year's Eve party. Carmen will be there. She has not come to a family event in so long. We need to support her. Everyone said yes. Everyone said they would be there. At Carmen's apartment, Carmen sat with Rosa at the kitchen table. The triplets were in their bedroom playing. Carmen said, I need to tell you about my plan for New Year's Eve. Rosa said, Okay, what is the plan? Carmen explained everything. She said, I will go to Mama's house at 8 o'clock at night. You will stay here with the children. At 11:30 at night, you will get them dressed in their new clothes. At 11:45, you will leave the apartment. It takes 20 minutes to drive to Mama's house. You will arrive at 11:55, right before midnight. You will bring the children inside. Rosa's face looked worried. She said, Carmen, are you sure about this? What if Derek gets angry? Carmen said, He will get angry. But that does not matter. Everyone will see the children. Everyone will see that I was never broken. That is what matters. Rosa said, What if he demands to know if they are his children? Carmen said, I will tell him they are Robert's children. Rosa said, But that is not true. Robert was not their biological father. Derek is. Carmen looked at her sister. She said, Robert loved them. He was there during my pregnancy. He wanted them. Derek did not. Derek left me. Derek told everyone I was defective. He does not deserve to be called their father. Rosa reached across the table. She held Carmen's hand. She said, I will do whatever you need. If you want me to bring the children at midnight, I will bring them. Carmen squeezed her sister's hand. She said, Thank you. On the other side of Chicago, in a house in Naperville, Derek Mitchell was eating breakfast with his mother, Patricia. Patricia said, I spoke to Teresa Rodriguez yesterday. Derek looked up from his eggs. He said, Why were you talking to her? Patricia said, She is having a New Year's Eve party. She invited me. Derek said, Are you going? Patricia said, Yes, and she told me something interesting. Carmen will be there. Derek stopped eating. He said, Carmen? She never goes to family events. Patricia said, I know, but Teresa said Carmen is finally coming out of hiding. Derek laughed. He said, Hiding? She should be hiding after everything that happened. Patricia looked at her son. She said, Derek, you know that is not fair. You left her. You said terrible things about her. Derek said, I said the truth. She could not have children. That is why our marriage failed. Patricia sighed. She said, That is not the truth and you know it. Derek stood up. He said, I am going to that party. Patricia said, Derek, I do not think that is a good idea. Derek said, Why not? Teresa was always nice to me. I have every right to be there. Patricia said, Please do not cause problems. Derek smiled. He said, I am not going to cause problems. I am going to bring Madison. I want everyone to see her. Patricia said, See her? Why? Derek said, She is 7 months pregnant, Mom. I want Carmen to see that I am having a family. I want Carmen to know that she was the problem, not me. Patricia shook her head. She said, You are making a mistake. Derek said, No, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. That evening, Derek called Madison. She was at her apartment in Wicker Park. She answered the phone. Derek said, Hey, babe, I have a question. Madison said, What is it? Derek said, My mom is going to a New Year's Eve party. It is at my ex-wife's mother's house. I think we should go. Madison was confused. She said, Your ex-wife's mother? Why would we go there? Derek said, Teresa was always kind to me. I want to show respect. I want her to meet you. Madison said, But won't your ex-wife be there? Derek said, Maybe, but that does not matter. You and I are together now. We are having a baby. We have nothing to hide. Madison felt uncomfortable. She said, I do not know, Derek. It seems strange. Derek said, Please, babe, it is important to me. I want to show Teresa that I am doing well. I want her to see that I am going to be a father. Madison said, Okay, if it is important to you, I will go. Derek said, Thank you. You are the best. After the phone call, Madison sat on her couch. She put her hand on her pregnant belly. Something felt wrong. She could not explain it. Why did Derek want to go to his ex-wife's family party? Why did he care what Teresa thought? Madison pushed the thoughts away. She trusted Derek. He said he loved her. That was enough. The next week, Carmen took the triplets shopping. They went to a store called Target. Carmen held Emma's hand. Rosa held Lucas's hand and Sophie's hand. They walked through the children's clothing section. Carmen said, We are going to pick out special outfits for New Year's Eve. Emma's eyes got big. She said, Can I pick a red dress? Carmen said, Yes, you can pick any red dress you want. Emma found a red dress with white flowers on it. She held it up. She said, This one, Mommy. I love this one. Carmen said, That is beautiful. We will get it. Lucas found a blue shirt with buttons. He said, I want this one. Sophie found a yellow dress with lace on the bottom. She said, This is the prettiest dress in the whole store. Carmen bought all 3 outfits. She also bought new shoes for each child. Black shoes for Lucas. Red shoes for Emma. Yellow shoes for Sophie. The children were so excited. They talked about the party all the way home. That night, Carmen wrote everything down on paper. She wrote the plan step by step. What time she would leave. What time Rosa would leave with the children. What time they would arrive. She wrote down the address of Teresa's house in case Rosa forgot. She wrote down everything. Then she gave the paper to Rosa. Rosa read it 3 times. She put it in her purse. She said, "I will not forget, I promise." The days passed slowly. Carmen went to work. She taught her students. She came home. She played with the triplets. She cooked dinner. She gave baths. She read bedtime stories. Every night, she looked at the calendar. She counted the days until New Year's Eve. Finally, the day arrived. December 31st. Carmen woke up at 6 o'clock like always, but this morning felt different. She felt calm. She felt ready. She made breakfast for the triplets. Pancakes with syrup, the children's favorite. They ate and talked about staying up late. They asked if they could stay up until midnight. Carmen said, "Maybe. We will see." Carmen let the children watch cartoons all morning. She played games with them in the afternoon. She took pictures on her phone. She took a picture of Emma drawing. She took a picture of Lucas building with blocks. She took a picture of Sophie singing. She wanted to remember this day. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Carmen made the children an early dinner. Chicken nuggets and French fries. Simple food that they loved. At 6:30, she gave them baths. At 7 o'clock, she put them in their pajamas. She said, "Aunt Rosa will come later. She will help you get dressed in your new clothes. Then she will take you to Grandma's house." Emma said, "Will you be there, Mommy?" Carmen said, "Yes, baby. I will be there waiting for you." Carmen kissed each child. She went to her bedroom. She put on black pants and a white blouse. She put on small earrings. She brushed her hair. She looked at herself in the mirror. She took a deep breath. She said quietly to her reflection, "Tonight, everything changes." Carmen picked up her purse. She walked to the living room. Rosa was already there, sitting on the floor with the triplets. They were playing with toy cars. Carmen said, "I am leaving now." The triplets looked up. Sophie ran to Carmen. She hugged her legs. She said, "Bye, Mommy." Carmen kissed the top of Sophie's head. She said, "Be good. I will see you soon." Rosa stood up. She walked Carmen to the door. She whispered, "Are you nervous?" Carmen shook her head. She said, "No, I am ready." Rosa hugged her sister. She said, "Call me if you need anything." Carmen left the apartment. She walked down the stairs. She got in her car. She drove through the streets of Chicago. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. Carmen drove for 25 minutes. She arrived at her mother's house in Humboldt Park. She parked on the street. She sat in her car for a moment. She looked at the house. Lights were on in every window. She could see people moving inside. She could hear music playing. Carmen got out of her car. She walked up the front steps. She opened the door. Immediately, warm air and noise hit her. The house was full of people. Her Aunt Lucia was in the living room talking to her Uncle Roberto. Her cousin Maria was in the kitchen with her husband. Children were running around. Music played from speakers. The smell of food was everywhere. Rice and beans and roasted pork. Teresa saw Carmen. She rushed over. She hugged Carmen tight. She whispered in her ear, "I am so proud of you, mija." Carmen hugged her mother back. She said, "Thank you, Mama." Teresa pulled back. She was smiling. She said loudly, "Everyone, Carmen is here." People turned. They smiled. They walked over. Carmen's Aunt Lucia hugged her. She said, "Carmen, it has been too long. How are you?" Carmen said, "I am good, Aunt Lucia. How are you?" Lucia said, "I am well. Still working at the hospital. Still dealing with my husband's snoring?" Everyone laughed. Carmen's uncle Roberto came over. He shook Carmen's hand. He said, "Good to see you, Carmen. You look healthy." Carmen said, "Thank you, Uncle Roberto." More relatives came over. They hugged Carmen. They asked about her job. They asked about teaching. They asked if she was dating anyone. Carmen answered all the questions. She smiled. She was polite. Nobody asked about children. They all assumed Carmen did not have children. They all believed what Derek had said 5 years ago. Carmen walked through the house. She went to the kitchen. Her cousin Maria was there putting food on plates. Maria saw Carmen. She hugged her. She said, "Carmen, oh my God, I am so happy you came. I have not seen you in forever." Carmen said, "I know. I am sorry. I have been busy." Maria said, "I understand. Life gets crazy. Hey, I want you to meet my husband." She turned to a tall man with dark hair. She said, "This is James. James, this is my cousin Carmen." James shook Carmen's hand. He said, "Nice to meet you. Maria talks about you all the time." Carmen said, "Nice to meet you too." They made small talk. James asked what grade Carmen taught. Carmen said 3rd grade. James said his sister was a teacher too. They talked about teaching for a few minutes. Then Maria said, "I heard Derek might come tonight." Carmen's face did not change. She said, "I heard that too." Maria said, "Are you okay with that?" Carmen said, "Yes, it was a long time ago." Maria looked like she wanted to say more, but she did not. She just nodded. Carmen got a plastic cup. She filled it with water from the sink. She walked to the living room. She found a spot near the wall. She stood there watching everyone. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. Rosa had sent a picture. The triplets were eating chicken nuggets. They were smiling. Carmen texted back a heart emoji. At 9 o'clock at night, the front door opened. Derek walked in. Madison was next to him. Derek had his hand on Madison's back. Madison walked slowly. Her pregnant belly was very big. She wore a blue dress that showed her belly. Derek wore a button-down shirt and jeans. He smiled as he walked in. People turned to look. Teresa was in the kitchen. She saw Derek. Her smile disappeared, but she did not say anything. She had promised Carmen she would not cause problems. Derek looked around the room. He saw Carmen's Uncle Roberto. He walked over. He said, "Roberto, good to see you, man." Roberto shook Derek's hand. He said, "Hello, Derek?" Derek said, "This is my girlfriend, Madison. Madison, this is Roberto. He is Carmen's uncle." Madison smiled shyly. She said, "Hello, nice to meet you." Roberto said, "Nice to meet you. Congratulations on the baby." Derek said, "Thank you. We are very excited. The baby is due in 2 months." Derek walked around the room. He introduced Madison to everyone. He talked loudly. He laughed loudly. He put his hand on Madison's belly often. He wanted everyone to notice. He wanted everyone to know he was going to be a father. Then Derek saw Carmen. She was standing near the wall, holding a cup of water. Derek's smile got bigger. He walked directly toward her. Madison followed him. She looked uncomfortable. Derek stopped in front of Carmen. He said, "Well, well, look who actually showed up to a family event." Carmen looked at him. Her face was calm. She said, "Hello, Derek." Derek said, "I have not seen you in what, 4 years? 5 years?" Carmen said, "Something around that time." Derek put his arm around Madison. He said, "This is Madison, my girlfriend. We are having a baby." Carmen looked at Madison. She said, "Congratulations." Madison said, "Thank you." Her voice was quiet. Derek said, "Madison is giving me what you never could. A real family. A child." Madison's face turned red. She said, "Derek, that is not nice." Derek ignored her. He kept looking at Carmen. He said, "Some women are just built different, I guess. Some can give life, some cannot." Carmen took a sip of her water. She said, "You are right, Derek. Some people are definitely built different." Derek thought Carmen was agreeing with him. He smiled. He said, "Exactly. I am glad you understand." He turned to Madison. He said, "Come on, babe. Let me introduce you to more people." They walked away. Madison looked back at Carmen once. Her face looked confused. Carmen just stood there. She did not move. She did not look upset. She just watched them go. Teresa came over. She stood next to Carmen. She whispered, "That man is garbage." Carmen said, "I know, Mama." Teresa said, "Do you want me to kick him out?" Carmen shook her head. She said, "No, let him talk. Let him say whatever he wants." The party continued. More people arrived. The house got more crowded. Derek kept walking around. He kept talking. He told his story to anyone who would listen. He told Carmen's uncle that Carmen focused too much on her career. He told Carmen's cousin that Carmen never really wanted children anyway. He told Madison's friend that the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to him. Carmen heard everything. She stood near the wall. She watched. She listened. She did not react. She did not defend herself. She just waited. People started to notice Derek's behavior. Carmen's uncle Roberto looked uncomfortable. Carmen's Aunt Lucia whispered to her sister. They looked at Derek. They looked at Carmen. Something felt wrong. Why was Derek saying these things? Why was he being so mean? At 9:30, Carmen checked her phone. She texted Rosa. The message said, "How are they?" Rosa texted back immediately. "They are good, playing with blocks. What time should I get them ready?" Carmen texted, "I will let you know soon." Derek saw Carmen looking at her phone. He walked over again. He said, "Who are you texting? Do you have a boyfriend now?" Carmen put her phone in her pocket. She said, "That is none of your business." Derek laughed. He said, "Still cold, still closed off. That is why we did not work, Carmen. You never let anyone in." Carmen looked at him. She said, "Is that what you tell yourself?" Derek's smile faded a little. He said, "What does that mean?" Carmen said, "Nothing, forget it." Derek said, "No. Say what you want to say." Carmen said, "I do not want to say anything. Enjoy your party, Derek." She walked away. She went to the kitchen. She got more water. Teresa was putting food on the table. She whispered, "What time should Rosa bring them?" Carmen whispered back, "Right before midnight, 11:55. Teresa smiled. She said, "I cannot wait." At 10 o'clock, people started eating. Teresa had made so much food. Rice and beans and pork and chicken and salad and bread. People filled their plates. They sat in the living room and the dining room and the kitchen. They ate and talked and laughed. Derek sat on the couch with Madison. He had a plate of food. Madison ate slowly. She looked tired. Carmen sat at the kitchen table with her Aunt Lucia. Lucia said, "Carmen, can I ask you something?" Carmen said, "Yes." Lucia said, "Are you really okay with Derek being here?" Carmen said, "Yes, Aunt Lucia, I am okay." Lucia said, "He is saying terrible things about you. Does that not bother you?" Carmen said, "No. People who know me know the truth. People who do not know me do not matter." Lucia smiled. She said, "You are stronger than I thought." At 10:30, Carmen checked her phone again. She opened her messages. She found Rosa's name. She typed 4 words. "Get them ready now." Rosa texted back, "Okay, I will get their clothes." Carmen put her phone away. Her heart started beating faster. In 1 hour and 25 minutes, everything would change. Carmen's phone buzzed. Rosa had sent a picture. Emma was in her red dress. Lucas was in his blue shirt. Sophie was in her yellow dress. They were standing together, smiling. Carmen stared at the picture. Her babies looked so beautiful. She texted back, "Perfect. Wait for my message." Carmen walked back to the living room. Derek was standing near the food table. He had a beer bottle in his hand. It was his second beer, maybe his third. Carmen was not sure. Derek was talking to Carmen's cousin Maria's husband, James. Derek said, "Marriage is hard, man. You have to make sure you pick the right woman. I learned that the hard way." James looked uncomfortable. He said, "Every marriage is different." Derek took a drink of his beer. He said, "That is true, but some women are not meant to be wives. Some women are not meant to be mothers." "You know what I mean?" James said, "I am not sure I do." Derek laughed. He said, "Never mind, you will understand one day." James walked away. He went to find Maria. Derek stood alone for a moment. Then he saw Carmen watching him. He walked toward her. His steps were not quite straight. The beer was affecting him. He stopped very close to Carmen. Too close. Carmen could smell the beer on his breath. Derek said, "Are you having fun, Carmen?" Carmen said, "Yes." Derek said, "Good. I am glad you finally came out of hiding." "You have been hiding for years." Carmen said, "I have not been hiding. I have been living my life." Derek laughed. He said, "Living your life, alone, in your little apartment, teaching other people's kids because you cannot have your own." Carmen's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed calm. She said, "You should sit down, Derek. You have had too much to drink." Derek said, "I am fine. I am better than fine. I am great. I am about to be a father. Me, not you. Métis." Madison appeared next to Derek. She pulled on his arm. She said, "Derek, come sit down. My feet hurt." Derek said, "Then sit down. I am talking to Carmen." Madison said, "Please, come with me." Derek pulled his arm away. He said, I said I am talking. Go sit without me." Madison's eyes filled with tears. She turned and walked to the couch. She sat down heavily. She put her hand on her belly. She looked miserable. Carmen's uncle Roberto came over. He said, "Derek, maybe you should take it easy on the beer." Derek said, "I am fine, Roberto. I can handle my beer." Roberto said, "You are being rude. You need to calm down." Derek said, "Rude? I am just being honest. Is honesty rude now?" Roberto shook his head. He walked away. He went to the kitchen where Teresa was. He said, "Teresa, Derek is drunk. He is saying mean things to Carmen. Do you want me to ask him to leave?" Teresa looked at Carmen. Carmen shook her head slightly. Teresa said, "Not yet. Give it time." Roberto looked confused, but he trusted Teresa. He said, "Okay, but if he gets worse, I am throwing him out." Derek walked around the party. He talked to anyone who would listen. He found Carmen's Aunt Lucia. He said, "Lucia, you remember when Carmen and I were married, right?" Lucia said, "Yes, I remember." Derek said, "Do you remember how she was always working? Always busy with her teaching? She never had time for the marriage." Lucia said, "I remember Carmen working hard. She loves teaching." Derek said, "That was the problem. She loved teaching more than she loved being a wife. She did not want to make time for a family." Lucia's face showed she did not believe him. She said, "That is not what I heard." Derek said, "What did you hear?" Lucia said, "I heard you left her. I heard you said terrible things about her." Derek's face turned red. He said, "That is not true. She was the problem. She could not have children. I had to leave. Lucia said, "And now she is standing here, and you are harassing her. That does not seem right to me." Lucia walked away. Derek stood there angry. He drank more beer. He got another bottle from the cooler. His face was flushed. His eyes were glassy. At 10:45, Derek found Carmen again. He said, "Why are you even here, Carmen? This is a family party. Family. You do not have a family." Carmen looked at him. She said, "You do not know anything about my life, Derek." Derek said, "I know enough. I know you are alone. I know you will always be alone." Madison got up from the couch. She walked over slowly. She said, "Derek, stop. Please stop talking to her." Derek said, "Why? I'm just having a conversation." Madison said, "No, you are being mean. You are drunk. Please stop." Derek said, "I am not drunk, and I am not being mean. I am telling the truth." Madison started crying. She said, "I want to go home." Derek said, "We just got here." Madison said, "It has been almost 2 hours. I am tired. I want to leave." Derek said, "Then leave. I am staying." Madison looked shocked. She said, "You want me to drive home alone? I am 7 months pregnant." Derek said, "You drove here fine. You can drive home fine." Madison stared at him. Then she walked to the door. She got her coat. She left the house. The door closed behind her. Derek did not follow her. He just got another beer. Carmen's uncle Roberto came over. He said, "Derek, you just let your pregnant girlfriend leave alone. What is wrong with you?" Derek said, "She is fine. She is just emotional. Pregnancy hormones." Roberto said, "You are being awful. I think you should leave too." Derek said, "I am not leaving. This is Teresa's house. She invited me." Teresa heard her name. She came over. She said, "I invited your mother. Your mother invited you. That is different." Derek said, "So you are kicking me out?" Teresa said, "I am asking you to be respectful. Stop saying mean things to Carmen. Or yes, I will kick you out." Derek held up his hands. He said, "Fine, fine. I will be quiet." He walked away, but he did not stop. He just talked more quietly. He told his story to other people. He told them Carmen refused to see fertility doctors. This was a lie. Carmen went to many doctors. He told them Carmen said she did not want children. This was also a lie. Carmen wanted children very much. He changed every story to make himself look good and Carmen look bad. People listened. They looked uncomfortable. They did not know what to believe. Some people believed Derek. Some people did not. Carmen heard all of it. She stood near the wall. She did not correct him. She did not argue. She just checked her phone. At 11 o'clock, someone turned on the television. The New Year's Eve broadcast from New York was on. People in Times Square were celebrating. The host was talking about the countdown that would happen in 1 hour. People in Teresa's house started gathering in the living room. They wanted to be together for midnight. Carmen checked her phone. It was 11 o'clock exactly. She opened her messages. She texted Rosa, "Leave in 15 minutes." Rosa texted back, "Okay, the kids are ready. They are so excited." Carmen texted, "Drive carefully. Park on the street. Come to the door at exactly 11:54. Rosa texted, "I will. See you soon." Carmen put her phone away. Her hands were shaking. This was really happening. In less than 1 hour, her children would walk through that door. Everyone would see them. Everyone would see the truth. Derek was in the center of the living room. He had Madison's coat in his hand. He must have gotten it before she left. He was holding it, like he forgot it was there. He said to the room, "This time next year, I will have my baby here. My son or daughter will be at this party." Someone said, "That is nice, Derek." Derek said, "I am going to be a great father, the best father. I am going to give my child everything." He looked directly at Carmen when he said this. He wanted to hurt her. He wanted her to feel bad. Carmen just looked back at him. Her face showed nothing. Teresa came and stood next to Carmen. She whispered, "Soon." Carmen whispered back, "Very soon." At 11:15, people started pouring champagne into plastic cups. They were getting ready for the countdown. Derek stood in the very center of the room. He wanted everyone to see him at midnight. He wanted this moment to be about him becoming a father. Carmen's phone buzzed. Rosa had texted, "We are leaving now, on our way." Carmen's heart beat so fast, she thought everyone could hear it. Carmen took a deep breath. She put her phone in her pocket. She looked around the room. Everyone was talking and laughing. They had no idea what was about to happen. Only Teresa knew. Teresa caught Carmen's eye. She smiled. At 11:20, people started practicing the countdown. Someone said, "Let's practice. 10, 9, 8. Everyone laughed. They shouted the numbers together. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. They were not really counting down yet. They were just excited. They were practicing for midnight. Derek was still in the center of the room. He had a plastic cup of champagne in his hand. He put his other hand on his chest. He said, "This time next year, we will have our baby here. My son or daughter will be part of this family." Someone said, "That is wonderful, Derek."
Derek said, "I have waited so long for this, so long to be a father. Finally, it is happening."
He looked at Carmen again. He wanted to make sure she heard him. Carmen stood near the front door. She looked at Derek. Her face was still calm. She did not look upset. She did not look angry. She just looked at him. At 11:25, Carmen moved closer to the door. She stood right next to it. Teresa noticed. She came over. She pretended to fix a picture on the wall near the door. She whispered, "Are you okay?" Carmen whispered, "Yes." Teresa whispered, "I am so proud of you, mija." Carmen whispered, "Thank you, Mama." At 11:30, the energy in the room changed. Everyone was getting more excited. The countdown was only 30 minutes away. People held their champagne cups. They stood closer together. The television was loud. The host in New York was talking about the ball drop. Derek talked to Carmen's cousin Maria. He said, "Being a father is the most important thing in the world. I am so ready for this." Maria said, "That is good, Derek." Derek said, "Some people never get to experience this. Some people cannot have children. I feel bad for them." Maria looked uncomfortable. She said, "Excuse me, I need to find my husband." She walked away. Derek did not notice. He kept talking to anyone nearby. At 11:35, Carmen's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Rosa had texted, "5 minutes away." Carmen texted back, "Park on the street. Walk up to the door at 11:54 exactly. Not earlier, not later." Rosa texted, "I understand. 11:54 exactly." Carmen's hands were shaking now. She put her phone away. She pressed her hands against her legs to make them stop shaking. Teresa came over again. She stood right next to Carmen. She whispered, "Are you sure about this?" Carmen nodded. She whispered, "Yes, I am sure." Teresa whispered, "Okay, I am here with you." At 11:40, people in the room started practicing the countdown again. They shouted, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They laughed loudly. Derek raised his champagne cup. He said, "To new beginnings, to family, to becoming a father." People raised their cups. Some people drank. Derek drank all of his champagne. He got more from the table. Carmen looked at the clock on the wall. 11:42. 13 minutes left. At 11:45, Carmen saw headlights through the front window. A car was parking on the street. Carmen's heart jumped. That was Rosa's car. Rosa was here. Carmen watched through the window. Rosa turned off the car. The headlights went dark. Rosa got out. She opened the back door. She helped Emma out of her car seat. Then Lucas. Then Sophie. The three children stood on the sidewalk. Rosa held their hands. They started walking toward the house. Carmen put her hand on the door handle. She did not open it yet. It was too early. She had to wait. She watched through the window. Rosa and the children walked up the sidewalk. They reached the front steps. Rosa looked at her watch. She stopped. She was making the children wait. It was not 11:54 yet. Teresa stood next to Carmen. She could see Rosa and the children through the window too. She whispered, "Oh my God, they are so beautiful." Carmen whispered, "I know." At 11:48, someone turned up the volume on the television. The host in New York said, "We are 12 minutes away from the new year. Get ready, everyone." People in Teresa's living room cheered. They moved closer together. Derek stood in the very center. He wanted to be in the middle of everything. He wanted everyone to see him when midnight came. Carmen looked at the clock. 11:49. 5 minutes left. At 11:50, the host on television said, "10 minutes. This is it. Get your champagne ready." People in the room raised their cups. They were so excited. Carmen looked out the window. Rosa and the children were still on the porch. They were waiting. Emma was bouncing up and down. She looked excited. Lucas was holding Rosa's hand tight. Sophie was looking at the door. At 11:52, Derek said loudly, "Everyone gather around. I want to make a toast." People moved closer to Derek. They formed a circle around him. Derek raised his champagne cup. He said, "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. This year has been the best year of my life. I met Madison. We are having a baby. I am finally going to be a father. After years of trying, after years of disappointment, it is finally happening." He looked directly at Carmen when he said years of disappointment. He was talking about her. He was saying she was the disappointment. People shifted uncomfortably. They did not like what Derek was saying, but nobody stopped him. Derek continued. He said, "Some things are just meant to be, and some things are not. I am grateful that I found the right person. I'm grateful that I am going to have a family." Carmen looked at the clock. 11:53. At 11:54, Carmen heard small footsteps on the porch. She looked out the window. Rosa had walked up to the door with the children. Rosa looked at Carmen through the window. Carmen nodded. She put her hand on the door handle. She did not open it yet. She had to wait for the right moment. The television host said, 6 minutes until midnight. Are you ready, everyone?" People in the room shouted, "Yes!" Derek said, "I am so ready. This is going to be my year, the year I become a father." Carmen opened the door just a little bit. Cold air came into the house. The children were right there. Emma saw Carmen through the crack in the door. She smiled big. Sophie waved. Lucas said, "Mommy?" But his voice was quiet. Only Carmen heard it. Carmen put her finger to her lips. She whispered, "Wait. I will tell you when." The triplets nodded. They understood. This was a game. They were good at games. At 11:55, the host on television said, 5 minutes, let's start the countdown practice. 10, 9, 8. Everyone in the room joined in. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They laughed and cheered. Derek kissed his fingers and pointed at the ceiling. He said, this time next year, my baby will be here. Carmen opened the door wider. She kept her hand on the handle. The triplets were right there, just outside, waiting. Rosa stood behind them. She was nervous. Carmen could see it on her face, but Rosa trusted Carmen. She would do exactly what Carmen asked. At 11:56, people started gathering in the living room. Everyone wanted to be together for the real countdown. They held their champagne cups. They put their arms around each other. Derek stood in the very center. He made sure everyone could see him. At 11:57, the television got louder. The host said, 3 minutes until the new year. People cheered. Carmen's Aunt Lucia said, I cannot believe another year is over. Carmen's Uncle Roberto said, time goes so fast. At 11:58, Carmen looked at the triplets. She whispered, almost time. When I say go, you run to me, okay? Emma whispered, okay, Mommy. Lucas whispered, okay. Sophie just nodded. Her eyes were big and excited. At 11:59, the host on television said, 1 minute, here we go, get ready. People in the room shouted. They raised their cups higher. Derek stood with both arms in the air. He was so happy. He had no idea what was about to happen. The host said, 30 seconds. Carmen looked at her children. She mouthed the words, get ready. The host said, 20 seconds. People started counting. 20, 19, 18. Carmen stepped back from the door. She kept her hand on the handle. 17, 16, 15. The triplets moved closer to the door. They were ready to run. 14, 13, 12. Carmen's heart was beating so loud. She thought everyone could hear it. 11, 10. Carmen opened the door all the way. 9, 8. The triplets saw all the people inside. So many people. They hesitated for just a second. 7, 6, 5. Carmen said quietly, go, come to Mommy. The triplets ran through the door. Their small feet made noise on the hardwood floor. 4, 3, 2. They pushed through the crowd of legs and adults. They ran toward Carmen. 1! Emma reached Carmen first. She threw her arms around Carmen's legs. Lucas grabbed Carmen's hand. Sophie wrapped both arms around Carmen's other leg. They shouted, Mommy! Mommy! Happy New Year! The entire room went completely silent. Nobody moved. The television was still playing. The host in New York was shouting, Happy New Year! But nobody in Teresa's living room was celebrating. Everyone was staring at Carmen. Everyone was staring at the 3 small children holding on to her. Emma looked up at Carmen. She whispered, Mommy, why is everyone looking at us? Carmen put her hand on Emma's head. She said quietly, It is okay, baby. Everything is okay. Sophie buried her face in Carmen's leg. Lucas held Carmen's hand so tight his knuckles were white. The children felt all the eyes on them. They did not understand why. Then people started to notice the children's faces. Emma turned to look at the room. She had bright green eyes, deep dimples in both cheeks, a square jawline. Lucas looked up. He had the same green eyes, the same dimples, the same thick eyebrows. Sophie peeked out from behind Carmen's leg. She had the same features. All 3 children looked almost exactly the same, and they looked exactly like Derek. Carmen's Aunt Lucia put her hand over her mouth. She whispered, Oh my God! Someone else whispered, They look just like him. Another person whispered, "Is that possible?" Derek stood frozen in the center of the room. His champagne cup was in his hand. He stared at the children. His mouth was open. No sound came out. His face went from normal to red to white. The cup slipped from his hand. It hit the hardwood floor. It shattered. Champagne splashed everywhere. The sound of breaking glass made people jump. But still, nobody spoke. They just stared. Teresa started laughing. She could not help it. She covered her mouth with her hand, but she could not stop. The laugh sounded nervous and happy at the same time. She had been waiting for this moment. She knew it was coming. And now, it was here. Carmen's uncle Roberto whispered to his wife, "How old are those kids?" His wife whispered back, "I don't know, maybe 3 or 4? Rosa came through the door. She closed it behind her. She stood near Carmen. She looked at Derek. She looked at all the relatives staring. She said nothing. She just stood there. Derek finally found his voice. He said, Who are these kids?" His voice cracked. It did not sound like his normal voice. It sounded scared. Nobody answered him. People just kept staring, looking at the children, looking at Derek, looking back at the children. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The green eyes were Derek's exact eyes. The dimples were Derek's exact dimples. Even the way Lucas's hair fell on his forehead was exactly like Derek's hair. Derek said again, "Whose kids are these?" Carmen's cousin Maria whispered, "They look exactly like you, Derek." Derek said, "That's impossible." Carmen stroked Emma's hair. She had not said anything yet. She just stood there with her 3 children, calm, quiet, waiting. Then Derek looked at Carmen, really looked at her. He said, "Carmen, are these your kids?" Carmen nodded. She said, "Yes, these are my children." The room somehow got even more quiet. People stopped whispering. They stopped moving. They barely breathed. Derek said, "Your children? But you can't have children." Carmen said, "Clearly, I can." Derek looked at the 3 children again. He counted them, 1, 2, 3. He said, "How many kids do you have?" Carmen said, 3. They are triplets. This is Emma. This is Lucas. This is Sophie. Derek shook his head. He said, No, this doesn't make sense." Carmen's Aunt Lucia said, "How old are they, Carmen?" Carmen said, "They are 4 years old. They turned 4 last August." People started doing math in their heads. Derek and Carmen got divorced 5 years ago. 5 minus 4 equals 1. Carmen got pregnant 1 year after the divorce. Or maybe she got pregnant right after the divorce. Or maybe she was already pregnant when Derek left. Someone whispered she got pregnant right after the divorce. Someone else whispered, or maybe before. Derek heard this. His face changed. He looked at Carmen. He said, "When did you get pregnant? Exactly when?" Carmen did not answer. She just looked at him. Derek said louder, "When did you get pregnant, Carmen?" Carmen said, "That is none of your business." Derek took a step toward her. Glass from the broken cup crunched under his shoe. He said, "Those kids look exactly like me. Exactly. How old are they really?" Carmen said, "I already told you. 4 years old." Derek said, "But when did you get pregnant? Before we divorced or after?" Carmen said, "Does it matter?" Derek said, "Yes, it matters. If you were pregnant before we divorced, those are my kids." The room was so quiet. Everyone was listening. Everyone wanted to know the answer. Carmen said, "You left me, Derek. You filed for divorce. You told everyone I was broken. You told everyone I could not have children. You humiliated me. Why would I tell you anything?" Derek said, "Because if those are my kids, I had a right to know." Carmen's voice got hard. She said, "You gave up your rights when you abandoned me, when you lied about me to everyone we knew." Derek said, "I didn't lie. I thought you couldn't have kids." Carmen said, "You didn't think anything. You blamed me. You told everyone I was the problem. You never considered that maybe we just needed more time. You just wanted someone to blame." Derek said, "We tried for 2 years." Carmen said, 2 years is not that long. The doctors said we were both healthy. They said it would happen. But you didn't want to wait. You wanted to prove you were capable. So you left." People were watching this like it was a movie, back and forth. Carmen and Derek. Years of pain coming out in words. Derek said, "I didn't know you were pregnant. You never told me." Carmen said, "By the time I knew, you were already gone. You had already told everyone your lies. You had already made me look like I was defective. Why would I tell you? So you could take credit. So you could say you were right all along?" Derek said, "Those are my children. Biologically, they are mine." Carmen said, "Biologically? No, Derek. They are not yours in any way that matters." Derek looked confused. He said, "What does that mean? They look exactly like me." Carmen said, "Their father was Robert Chen. He was my partner. He was there during my pregnancy. He loved them before they were born. He died 4 years ago in a car accident. These children have his DNA, not yours." Derek said, "That's impossible. Look at them. They have my eyes, my dimples, my face." Carmen said, "Genetics are strange sometimes, but Robert was their father. He was with me through the pregnancy until he died. You were never part of this." Derek said, "You're lying. I know you're lying." Carmen shrugged. She said, "Believe what you want. But Robert was their father. You are nothing to them. They don't know you. You don't know them." Derek looked around the room. He was looking for support. He said, "Someone here must see how wrong this is. She kept my children from me." Nobody spoke. People looked away. They did not want to get involved. Carmen's uncle Roberto finally said, "You left her, Derek. You told everyone she was broken. You made her life hell. Now she has a good life. Leave her alone." Derek said, "But these are my biological children." Teresa stepped forward. Her face was angry. She said, "Derek, you need to leave my house now." Derek said, "What? No, we need to talk about this." Teresa said, "There is nothing to talk about. You hurt my daughter. You lied about her. You are not welcome here. Leave." Derek said, "You can't just kick me out. I have rights. Those are my kids." Teresa said, "Those are Carmen's children. She raised them. She loved them. You did nothing. You were not there. Now get out of my house." Derek's hands were shaking. He looked at Carmen one more time. He looked at the triplets. Emma was still holding on to Carmen. Lucas had his face pressed against Carmen's side. Sophie was crying quietly. The children were scared. They did not understand what was happening. Derek said quietly, "This isn't over. I will fight for my rights. I will get a lawyer. I will demand a paternity test." Carmen said, "Do what you need to do, but know this. Even if biology says you are their father, you will never be their dad. You gave that up 5 years ago." Derek stared at her. Then he turned and walked to the door. He grabbed his coat. He stopped with his hand on the handle. He turned back. Everyone was still watching him. He said, "I will fight for my rights. You can't keep my children from me." Then he walked out. The door slammed behind him. For a long moment, nobody moved. The door was closed. Derek was gone. But everyone was still frozen. They were still processing what just happened. 3 children, triplets, 4 years old. Carmen had children. Carmen, who Derek said could not have children. Carmen, who everyone thought was infertile. Then, suddenly, everyone started moving at once. People started talking, whispering, asking questions. The room filled with noise. Carmen knelt down. She was eye level with her children now. Emma's face was scared. Lucas was crying quietly. Sophie had her arms wrapped tight around Carmen's neck. Carmen said softly, "It's okay. Everything is okay. You are safe." Emma said, "Mommy, who was that man? Why was he yelling?" Carmen said, "That was nobody important. Don't worry about him." Lucas said, "I want to go home." Carmen said, "We will go home soon. I promise." Teresa came over. She knelt down too. She said, "My beautiful babies, I am so happy you are here." She kissed each child on the forehead. Emma stopped looking scared. Lucas stopped crying. Sophie loosened her grip on Carmen's neck. Carmen's Aunt Lucia came over. She knelt down in front of the triplets. She was smiling. She said, "Hello, I am your Aunt Lucia. What are your names?" Emma said quietly, "I am Emma." Lucas said, "I am Lucas." Sophie said nothing. She just stared. Lucia said, "It is so nice to meet you. You are all so beautiful." More relatives started coming over. They formed a circle around Carmen and the children. Carmen's cousin Maria knelt down. She said, "Hi, I'm your cousin Maria." She pointed to Emma's dress. She said, "I love your red dress." Emma smiled a little. She said, "Thank you. Red is my favorite color." Maria said, "Red is a great color." Lucas said, "Blue is better." Maria laughed. She said, "Blue is great too." Carmen's uncle Roberto came over. He did not kneel down because his knees were bad, but he bent down a little. He said, "Welcome to the family, kids. I am your Uncle Roberto." Sophie finally spoke. She said, "Are you Mommy's uncle?" Roberto said, "Yes, I am your mommy's uncle, which makes me your uncle too." Sophie thought about this. Then she smiled. Rosa came over. She said, "Come on, guys. Let's get you some juice and cookies." The triplets looked at Carmen. Carmen nodded. She said, "Go with Aunt Rosa. I will be right here." Rosa took the children to the kitchen. Other relatives followed. They wanted to talk to the children. They wanted to meet them. The living room got less crowded. Carmen stood up. Her legs felt weak. Teresa grabbed her arm. She said, "Come sit down, mija." Carmen sat on the couch. Teresa sat next to her. Carmen put her face in her hands. She took deep breaths. Teresa said, "You did it. You really did it." Carmen said, "I feel like I am going to throw up." Teresa laughed. She said, "That is just the adrenaline. You will be okay." Carmen's hands were shaking. She put them in her lap. She tried to make them stop, but they would not. Carmen's Aunt Lucia came over. She sat on Carmen's other side. She said, "Carmen, those children are beautiful. Why did you hide them for so long?" Carmen said, "I was scared. I was scared Derek would find out. I was scared he would try to take them." Lucia said, "Will he try to take them?" Carmen said, "Maybe, probably. He said he would get a lawyer." Lucia said, "Let him try. Any judge would see he abandoned you. He has no rights." Carmen said, "I hope you are right." In the kitchen, Rosa was giving the triplets juice boxes. Emma had apple juice. Lucas had grape juice. Sophie had fruit punch. They sat at the kitchen table. Relatives surrounded them. They were asking questions. Gentle questions. Kind questions. Maria said, "Do you go to school?" Emma said, We go to preschool. I like to draw. Maria said, What do you like to draw? Emma said, Flowers and animals, mostly flowers. Roberto's wife asked Lucas, What do you like to do? Lucas said, I like to build things. With blocks, I built a castle today. Everyone smiled. They thought Lucas was adorable. Someone asked Sophie, Do you like to sing? Sophie nodded. She said, I know 5 songs. Teresa said, Will you sing one for us? Sophie thought about it. Then she started singing. It was a simple song, a song about the alphabet. Her voice was small but clear. When she finished, everyone clapped. Sophie smiled big. Her dimples showed. Those dimples that looked exactly like Derek's dimples. Back in the living room, Carmen's cousin Maria's husband, James, came over. He sat in a chair across from Carmen. He said, I have to ask, are those kids really Derek's biological children? Carmen looked at him. She said, Why does everyone want to know that? James said, Because they look exactly like him. I have never seen a resemblance that strong. Carmen said, Robert was their father. And James said, But biologically. Carmen said, Biology does not make someone a father. Love makes someone a father. Robert loved them. Derek does not even know them. James nodded slowly. He said, That is fair. I am sorry for asking. Carmen said, It is okay. Everyone is wondering. I know they look like Derek, but that does not make him their father. James said, You are right. He stood up. He said, For what it is worth, I think you did the right thing. Derek is not a good person. He proved that tonight. James walked away. Teresa said, He is right. Derek showed everyone who he really is tonight. Carmen said, Where did Derek even go? Did he go home? Teresa said, I don't know. Maybe he went to find Madison. Carmen said, Madison? Oh no, I forgot about Madison. She left before midnight. She must be so confused, so hurt. Teresa said, That is not your fault. Derek hurt her, not you. Carmen said, I know, but I feel bad for her. She believed his lies. She thought he was a good person. Lucia said, She will figure it out. She saw how he acted tonight. She saw him let her drive home alone while pregnant. She knows now. At 1 o'clock in the morning, people started leaving. They hugged Carmen goodbye. They hugged the triplets goodbye. They said, Welcome to the family, to Emma, Lucas, and Sophie. They said, We are so happy to finally meet you. By 2 o'clock, only Carmen's immediate family was left. Teresa, Rosa, Lucia, Roberto, and Maria. The triplets were getting tired. Emma was yawning. Lucas was lying on the couch. Sophie was sitting in Teresa's lap with her eyes half closed. Carmen said, We should go home. Rosa said, I will help you get them to the car. They got the children's coats on. They walked outside. The air was cold. It was January 1st now. A new year. Carmen's car was parked on the street. Rosa helped buckle the triplets into their car seats. Emma fell asleep immediately. Lucas was asleep before they even left Teresa's street. Sophie stayed awake a little longer. She said, Mommy, did you have fun at the party? Carmen looked at Sophie in the rearview mirror. She said, Yes, baby. Did you have fun? Sophie said, Yes. Everyone was nice. I liked singing my song. Carmen said, You sang beautifully. Sophie smiled. Then her eyes closed. She fell asleep too. Carmen drove through the empty streets of Chicago. There were very few cars. Most people were home asleep. The city was quiet. Carmen thought about everything that happened. Derek's face when he saw the children. His anger. His denial. His threats. Madison leaving alone and pregnant. The whole family seeing the truth. The weight Carmen had carried for 5 years felt lighter. not gone, but lighter. Carmen arrived at her apartment building. She parked on the street. She turned off the car. She sat there for a moment. Then she got out. She opened the back door. She unbuckled Emma first. Emma did not wake up. Carmen carried her up the 3 flights of stairs. She put Emma in her bed. She went back down. She got Lucas. He was heavier than Emma. Carmen's arms hurt by the time she reached the apartment. She put Lucas in his bed. She went back down one more time. She got Sophie. Sophie woke up a little. She said, "Mommy?"
Carmen said, "Shh, we are home. Go back to sleep."
Sophie put her head on Carmen's shoulder. By the time they reached the apartment, Sophie was asleep again. Carmen put Sophie in her bed. She took off their shoes. She covered them with blankets. She kissed each forehead. She whispered, "I love you," to each of them. Carmen went to her own bedroom. She sat on her bed. She was so tired, but her mind would not stop. She kept thinking about Derek's words. "I will fight for my rights. I will get a lawyer." Carmen knew he meant it. Derek would fight. He would demand a paternity test, and the test would show the truth. Derek was the biological father. Carmen had lied when she said Robert was their father. Robert was her partner. He loved her and the babies, but he was not their biological father. Derek was. Carmen looked at the picture of Robert on her nightstand. She picked it up. She said quietly, "I am sorry I lied, but they do not need to know Derek. Derek would hurt them. He would make them feel like they are not enough, just like he made me feel. I cannot let that happen." She put the picture back. She changed into pajamas. She got into bed. She closed her eyes. She expected to lie awake all night thinking, but she fell asleep almost immediately. Her body was exhausted. Her mind was exhausted. She slept deeply for the first time in years. Carmen woke up to the sound of her phone ringing. She opened her eyes. Sunlight was coming through the window. She looked at the clock. It was 9:30 in the morning. She had slept for 7 hours. Carmen never slept that long. She grabbed her phone. It was her mother calling. She answered. Teresa said, "Good morning, mija. How are you feeling?" Carmen sat up. Her neck was stiff. Her whole body was sore. She said, "Tired? Sore? But okay." Teresa said, "The kids are okay." Carmen said, "Yes, they are still sleeping." Teresa said, "Good, let them sleep. They had a big night." Carmen said, "We all had a big night." Teresa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Carmen, Derek might really get a lawyer. He might demand a paternity test. You need to be ready for that." Carmen said, "I know, Mama." Teresa said, "What will you do if he demands a test?" Carmen said, "I will tell the truth. The triplets are Derek's biological children, but Robert was their father in every way that mattered." Teresa said, "Derek does not deserve them." Carmen said, "I know, but the law might not care what he deserves." Teresa sighed. She said, "We will fight him if we have to. The whole family will fight him." Carmen said, "Thank you, Mama." They talked for a few more minutes. Then Carmen hung up. She got out of bed. She walked to the triplets' bedroom. She opened the door quietly. All 3 children were still asleep. Emma was curled up in a ball. Lucas was sprawled out. Sophie was hugging her stuffed rabbit. They looked peaceful. Carmen watched them for a moment. Then she closed the door. Carmen went to the kitchen. She made coffee. She sat at the table. She checked her phone. She had text messages from relatives. Her Aunt Lucia had texted, "Those children are beautiful. So happy we finally met them." Her cousin Maria had texted, "Emma is adorable. Let's get together soon." Her uncle Roberto had texted, "You did good, Carmen. Your father would be proud." Carmen read each message. She felt warmth in her chest. Her family accepted her children. They loved them already. That was all she wanted. At 10 o'clock, she heard footsteps. The triplets' bedroom door opened. Emma walked out, rubbing her eyes. She said, "Mommy?" Carmen said, "Good morning, baby." Emma climbed onto Carmen's lap. She put her head on Carmen's shoulder. She said, "I am tired." Carmen said, "You can rest today. We are not going anywhere." Lucas and Sophie came out a few minutes later. They all sat at the kitchen table. Carmen made them breakfast. Pancakes again. The children ate slowly. They were still tired from staying up late. At 11 o'clock, Carmen's phone rang. She did not recognize the number. She answered carefully. She said, "Hello?" A woman's voice said, "Is this Carmen Rodriguez?" Carmen said, "Yes, who is this?" The woman said, "This is Madison Parker. We met last night at the party." Carmen was surprised. She said, "Oh, hello, Madison." Madison said, "I am sorry to call. I got your number from Derek's phone. I hope that is okay." Carmen said, "It is okay." Madison said, "Can we talk? Just the two of us? I need to ask you some questions." Carmen looked at the triplets. They were watching cartoons in the living room. She said, "When do you want to talk?" Madison said, "Today, if you can. I know it is New Year's Day, but I really need to talk to you." Carmen said, "Okay, where?" Madison said, "There is a coffee shop in Logan Square, on Milwaukee Avenue. Do you know it?" Carmen said, "Yes, I know it." Madison said, "Can you meet me there at noon?" Carmen looked at the clock. It was 11:15. She said, "I need to find someone to watch my kids. Can we meet at 1 o'clock instead?" Madison said, "Yes, 1 o'clock works. Thank you, Carmen." Carmen hung up. She immediately called Rosa. Rosa answered. Carmen said, "Can you watch the triplets for a few hours? I need to meet someone." Rosa said, "Who?" Carmen said, "Madison, Derek's girlfriend." Rosa said, "What? Why does she want to meet you?" Carmen said, "I do not know, but I think I should go." Rosa said, "Okay, I will be there in 20 minutes." Rosa arrived exactly 20 minutes later. Carmen explained that she would be gone for a few hours. Rosa said, "Be careful. What if this is a trap? What if Derek is with her?" Carmen said, "I do not think it is a trap." Madison sounded upset. She sounded like she needed help. Rosa said, "Okay, but call me if anything bad happens." Carmen left the apartment. She drove to Logan Square. She found the coffee shop on Milwaukee Avenue. She parked on the street. She went inside. The coffee shop was small. There were only 10 tables. Most of them were empty. Carmen ordered tea. She sat at a table near the window. She waited. At exactly 1 o'clock, Madison walked in. She looked tired. Her eyes were red and swollen. She had been crying. She was still pregnant. Her belly was still big. She walked slowly to Carmen's table. She said, "Thank you for meeting me." Carmen said, "Sit down." Madison sat. She put her purse on the floor. She put her hands on the table. Her hands were shaking. She said, "I do not know where to start." Carmen said, "Start anywhere." Madison took a deep breath. She said, "I am sorry." Carmen did not expect this. She said, "Sorry for what?" Madison said, "For believing Derek's lies, for thinking you were the villain, for not seeing what kind of person he really is." Carmen said, "That is not your fault. He lied to you." Madison said, "But I should have seen the signs. I should have questioned his stories. He told me you were infertile. He told me you refused to see doctors. He told me you were cold and did not want children. I believed everything." Carmen said, "He is good at lying. He convinced me I was broken for 2 years. He made me believe something was wrong with me." Madison started crying. Tears ran down her face. She said, "Those children, they look exactly like him." Carmen did not respond. She just waited. Madison said, "I do not care if they are biologically his or not. That is your business. but I need to know something." She looked at Carmen. Her eyes were desperate. She said, "Is Derek a good person? Would he be a good father?" Carmen thought carefully before answering. She wanted to tell the truth, but she did not want to be cruel. She said, "Derek wants to be seen as a good person. He wants people to think he is successful and capable. But I do not think he knows how to actually love someone. He only knows how to use people." Madison put her face in her hands. She said, "I am going to have his baby. What do I do?" Carmen reached across the table. She took Madison's hand. She said, "You raise your baby with love. You protect your baby from Derek's lies. You do not let him make you feel small." Madison said, "I am so scared. I am alone. I do not have family in Chicago. I moved here 3 years ago from Indiana. I do not have many friends. Derek was all I had." Carmen said, "You are not alone. You are stronger than you think." Madison said, "How do you do it? Raise 3 children alone?" Carmen said, "I have help. My mother, my sister, my family. You can find help too." Madison said, "My family is in Indiana. They told me not to move to Chicago. They told me it was a mistake. I do not want to go back and admit they were right." Carmen said, "Then do not go back. Stay here. Build a life here. There are programs that help single mothers. There are support groups. You can do this." Madison wiped her eyes. She said, "Derek came to my apartment last night after he left the party. He was angry. He said you lied. He said those children are his. He said he is going to get a lawyer." Carmen said, "Let him get a lawyer. I am not afraid of Derek." Madison said, "Are those children his biological children?" Carmen looked at Madison for a long moment. Then she said, "Robert Chen was their father. He loved them. He wanted them. That is all that matters." Madison nodded slowly. She said, "Derek does not deserve them." Carmen said, "No, he does not." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Madison said, "I left him last night. After he came to my apartment, I told him I do not want to be with him anymore." Carmen said, "Good." Madison said, "He said I need him. He said I cannot raise a baby alone. He said I will come back." Carmen said, "Do not go back. You deserve better. Your baby deserves better." Madison started crying again, but this time it looked like relief. She said, "Thank you. Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for not hating me." Carmen said, "I do not hate you. You are a victim of Derek's lies, just like I was." They sat together for another hour. They talked about pregnancy and babies and raising children alone. Madison asked questions. Carmen answered them. They exchanged phone numbers. Madison said, "Can I call you if I need advice?" Carmen said, "Yes, you can call me any time." They left the coffee shop together. They stood on the sidewalk. Madison said, "I am glad I met you. The real you, not the person Derek described." Carmen said, "I am glad I met you too." Madison walked to her car. Carmen walked to hers. As Carmen drove home, she thought about Madison. She felt sorry for her. Madison was young. She was alone. She was pregnant with Derek's baby. But Madison was strong. She left Derek. She asked for help. She would be okay. Carmen arrived home at 2:30 in the afternoon. She parked her car and walked up the 3 flights of stairs. She opened the door. Rosa was on the floor playing blocks with Lucas. Emma was drawing at the table. Sophie was singing to her stuffed rabbit. Rosa looked up. She said, "How did it go?" Carmen sat on the couch. She said, "It went okay. Madison is a good person. Derek lied to her about everything." Rosa said, "Is she going to stay with him?" Carmen said, "No. She left him last night. She is going to raise her baby alone." Rosa said, "Good for her." The triplets ran over to Carmen. They climbed on the couch with her. Emma said, "Mommy, where did you go?" Carmen said, "I went to talk to a friend." Sophie said, "Can we go to Grandma's house again soon?" Carmen said, "Yes, we can go visit Grandma this week." Lucas said, "I liked meeting everyone at the party." Carmen kissed his forehead. She said, "Everyone liked meeting you too." The next few days were quiet. Carmen stayed home with the triplets. School was still on winter break. They would not go back until January 8th. Carmen played with her children. They watched movies. They built things with blocks. They drew pictures. They sang songs. On January 3rd, Carmen received a letter in the mail. It was from a law office. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter said Derek Mitchell was demanding a paternity test for the children Emma, Lucas, and Sophie Rodriguez. The letter said Derek believed he was the biological father. The letter said if Carmen refused the test, Derek would take her to court. Carmen read the letter 3 times. Then she called Teresa. Teresa answered immediately. Carmen said, "Mama, I got a letter from Derek's lawyer." Teresa said, "What does it say?" Carmen said, "He wants a paternity test. He says if I refuse, he will take me to court." Teresa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do not refuse. Take the test. Let him know the truth." Carmen said, "The truth is, he is their biological father." Teresa said, "I know, but biology does not make him their dad. You raised them. You loved them. Robert loved them. Derek was not there. No judge will give him custody." Carmen said, "What if I am wrong? What if he gets partial custody? What if the children have to spend time with him?" Teresa said, "Then we will deal with it. But Carmen, you cannot hide anymore. You hook them to the party. Everyone knows they exist now. You have to face this." Carmen knew her mother was right. She said, "I need a lawyer." Teresa said, "Yes, I will ask around. Someone in the family will know a good lawyer." That night, Carmen could not sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about Derek having custody of the triplets. She thought about them spending weekends at his house. She thought about Derek telling them she was broken. She thought about him poisoning their minds. The thoughts made her sick. On January 5th, Teresa called. She said, "I found a lawyer. Her name is Jennifer Okafor. She specializes in family law. She has helped many single mothers. She is very good." Carmen said, "How much does she cost?" Teresa said, "Do not worry about money right now. Just meet with her, see what she says." Carmen made an appointment. On January 7th, she went to Jennifer Okafor's office. The office was in downtown Chicago. Carmen took the train. Rosa watched the triplets. Carmen arrived at the office at 10 o'clock in the morning. Jennifer Okafor was a tall woman with dark skin and short hair. She wore a gray suit. She shook Carmen's hand. She said, "Please, sit down. Tell me what is happening." Carmen told her everything. She told her about Derek, about the marriage, about the lies, about the divorce, about getting pregnant, about Robert, about hiding the triplets for 4 years, about the New Year's Eve party, about Derek's lawyer demanding a paternity test. Jennifer listened carefully. She took notes. When Carmen finished, Jennifer said, "First, we will agree to the paternity test. We have nothing to hide. The test will show Derek is the biological father. But that does not mean he gets custody." Carmen said, "It doesn't?" Jennifer said, "No, Derek abandoned you. He told lies about you. He has had no contact with these children for their entire lives. Any judge will consider this. He will likely get visitation rights, but not custody." Carmen said, I do not want him near my children. Jennifer said, I understand, but legally, he has rights. He is their biological father. We cannot deny him all contact, but we can limit it. Supervised visitation, a few hours a week. That is likely what a judge will order. Carmen felt tears in her eyes. She said, he will hurt them, not physically, but emotionally. He will make them feel like they are not enough. Jennifer said, then we document everything. Every time he says something harmful, every time he misses a visit, every time he proves he is not a good father. We build a case, and eventually we can ask the judge to reduce his visitation or remove it completely. Carmen wiped her eyes. She said, okay, what do I do first? Jennifer said, first, we respond to his lawyer. We agree to the paternity test. Then we wait for the results. Then we go to court. I will be with you every step. Carmen left the office feeling slightly better. She had a plan. She had help. She was not alone. The paternity test happened on January 15th. Carmen brought the triplets to a medical office. A nurse swabbed the inside of each child's cheek. Emma asked why. Carmen said, the doctor needs to check something. Emma accepted this answer. Derek was at the same office, but he came at a different time. Carmen did not see him. She was grateful for that. The results came back on January 22nd. Jennifer called Carmen. She said, the test confirms Derek is the biological father. Carmen already knew this, but hearing it out loud still hurt. She said, what happens now? Jennifer said, now Derek's lawyer will file for custody. We will go to court. The first hearing is scheduled for February 5th. Carmen said, will I have to see him? Jennifer said, yes, you will both be in court, but you do not have to speak to him. I will do all the talking. The days passed slowly. Carmen went back to work on January 8th. She taught her third-grade class. She came home. She played with the triplets. She cooked dinner. She gave baths. She read bedtime stories. She tried to act normal, but inside, she was terrified. On January 25th, Madison texted Carmen. The message said, can we meet for coffee? I need to talk. Carmen texted back, yes, when? Madison texted, tomorrow, same coffee shop? Carmen texted, okay, 1 o'clock? Madison texted, perfect, thank you. The next day, Carmen met Madison at the coffee shop in Logan Square. Madison looked different. She looked stronger, more confident. They ordered coffee and sat at a table. Madison said, I wanted to tell you something. I had my baby. Carmen smiled. She said, congratulations. When? Madison said, 3 days ago, January 23rd, a girl. I named her Lily. Carmen said, that is a beautiful name. Madison showed Carmen pictures on her phone. The baby was tiny and pink with dark hair. Madison said, she is perfect. Carmen said, she is beautiful. Madison said, Derek came to the hospital. He wanted to see her. I let him, but I did not let him hold her. I did not trust him. Carmen said, how did he react? Madison said, he was angry. He said I was being unfair. He said Lily is his daughter. I told him he could see her, but only with supervision. He left after 10 minutes. Carmen said, I am sorry. Madison said, do not be sorry. I am better off without him. Lily is better off without him. They talked for an hour. Madison asked about the triplets. Carmen told her about the paternity test, about the court date. Madison said, I am going through the same thing. Derek wants custody of Lily. His lawyer sent me papers. Carmen said, we should stay in touch. We can help each other. Madison said, I would like that. They exchanged more information. They promised to text each other regularly. They promised to support each other. When they left the coffee shop, Carmen felt less alone. She had an ally, someone who understood what she was going through. On February 5th, Carmen went to court. She wore black pants and a white blouse. Jennifer met her outside the courthouse. Jennifer said, "Remember, stay calm. Do not react to anything Derek says. I will handle everything." They walked inside. The courthouse was big and cold. They went through security. They took an elevator to the 3rd floor. They walked into a courtroom. Derek was already there with his lawyer. Derek looked at Carmen. Carmen looked away. The judge came in. Everyone stood. The judge sat. Everyone sat. The hearing began. The judge was a woman in her 50s. She had gray hair and wore black robes. She looked at the papers in front of her. She said, "This is the case of Mitchell versus Rodriguez. Custody and visitation rights for 3 minor children." She looked up. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, you are claiming paternity of 3 children, correct?" Derek's lawyer stood up. He was a short man in a dark suit. He said, "Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell is the biological father of Emma, Lucas, and Sophie Rodriguez. The paternity test confirms this." The judge said, "Ms. Rodriguez, do you dispute the paternity test results?" Jennifer stood up. She said, "No, Your Honor. We do not dispute that Mr. Mitchell is the biological father. However, we do dispute his claim to custody." The judge said, "Explain." Jennifer said, "Mr. Mitchell abandoned Ms. Rodriguez 5 years ago. He filed for divorce. He told everyone, including family and friends, that Ms. Rodriguez was infertile. He humiliated her publicly. He had no contact with Ms. Rodriguez after the divorce. He did not know about the children until January 1st of this year. The children are now 4 years old. Mr. Mitchell has been absent for their entire lives." Derek's lawyer said, "Mr. Mitchell did not know about the children. Ms. Rodriguez kept them secret. She denied him the right to be a father." Jennifer said, Ms. Rodriguez had no obligation to tell Mr. Mitchell about her pregnancy. He had already left. He had already spread lies about her. She made the decision to protect herself and her children from further harm. The judge looked at Carmen. She said, "Miss Rodriguez, why did you not inform Mr. Mitchell about the pregnancy?" Carmen stood up. Her legs were shaking. She said, "Your Honor, when I found out I was pregnant, Derek had already filed for divorce. He had already told everyone I was broken. He called me defective. He said I could not have children. I was ashamed and hurt. I decided he did not deserve to know." The judge said, "That was not your decision to make alone. He had a right to know he was going to be a father." Carmen said, "With respect, Your Honor, Derek did not want to be a father. He wanted proof. He wanted to show people he was capable. He wanted to win. He did not want children because he loved them. He wanted them as evidence that I was the problem." The judge looked at Derek. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, is this true?" Derek stood up. He said, "No, Your Honor. I wanted a family. I wanted children very much. Carmen and I tried for 2 years. Nothing happened. The doctors said we were both healthy. But Carmen was the problem. I am sure of it." The judge said, "The medical records show both of you were healthy. There was no problem." Derek said, "But she did not get pregnant while we were married. She got pregnant right after we divorced. That proves she was the problem." Jennifer said, "Your Honor, that proves nothing. Pregnancy is not predictable. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it happens quickly. Ms. Rodriguez got pregnant approximately 3 weeks before the divorce was finalized. Mr. Mitchell had already left by then." The judge looked at the papers again. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, you are also seeking custody of a 4th child, a daughter named Lily Parker Mitchell, born January 23rd. Is that correct? Derek said, Yes, Your Honor. Lily is my daughter with Madison Parker. Madison is keeping me from seeing her. The judge said, That is a separate case. We are here today to discuss Emma, Lucas, and Sophie Rodriguez. Let us stay focused. Derek sat down. He looked angry. The judge said, I have reviewed all the documents. I have read the statements from both parties. Here is my decision. Mr. Mitchell is the biological father of the 3 children. However, he has had no relationship with them for their entire lives. He has provided no financial support. He has shown no interest in their well-being until he discovered they existed. Derek's lawyer started to speak. The judge held up her hand. She said, I am not finished. Ms. Rodriguez has raised these children alone with help from her family. The children are healthy, happy, and well cared for. I see no reason to disrupt their lives. Carmen felt hope rising in her chest. The judge continued. She said, however, Mr. Mitchell does have rights as the biological father. Therefore, I am granting him supervised visitation, 2 hours per week, at a neutral location, with a court-appointed supervisor present. After 6 months, we will review the situation. If Mr. Mitchell proves he is a responsible and caring parent, we may increase visitation. If he does not, we may reduce or eliminate it. Derek said, 2 hours? That is it? The judge said, That is my ruling. You may appeal if you wish, but I suspect any appeals court will uphold this decision. You abandoned Ms. Rodriguez. You spread lies about her. You have no relationship with these children. You are lucky to get any visitation at all. Derek's face turned red. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. The lawyer said, Thank you, Your Honor. The judge said, Ms. Rodriguez, do you accept this ruling? Carmen looked at Jennifer. Jennifer nodded. Carmen said, Yes, Your Honor. The judge said, Good. The first supervised visit will be scheduled within 2 weeks. You will both receive notification. This hearing is adjourned. The judge stood. Everyone stood. The judge left the courtroom. Carmen felt her legs almost give out. Jennifer caught her arm. She said, You did it. You won. Carmen said, 2 hours a week. He gets 2 hours a week with my children. Jennifer said, supervised, with someone watching. He cannot hurt them. And if he misses visits or behaves badly, we can go back to court and get his visitation reduced. Derek and his lawyer left quickly. Derek did not look at Carmen. Carmen was grateful. Outside the courthouse, Teresa was waiting. She had taken the day off work to be there. She hugged Carmen tightly. She said, What happened? Carmen said, I have primary custody. He gets 2 hours a week, supervised. Teresa said, Thank God! Thank God! They walked to Teresa's car. Teresa drove Carmen home. Carmen sat in silence. She was processing everything. She had won, but it did not feel like winning. Derek would still see her children. He would still be in their lives. She would have to tell Emma, Lucas, and Sophie about him. 3 months passed. Derek had supervised visits with the triplets every Saturday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The visits happened at a family center. A woman named Patricia supervised. Not Derek's mother, a different Patricia, a social worker. The first few visits were awkward. The triplets did not know Derek. They were shy. Derek tried too hard. He brought expensive toys. He talked loudly. He asked them questions they did not understand. After each visit, Emma asked Carmen, Why do we have to see that man? Carmen said, Because he is your biological father. The judge says you have to. Emma did not understand. She was only 4 years old. By March, Derek missed 2 visits. He called and said he was busy with work. The supervisor documented this. Jennifer told Carmen they could use this in court later if needed. By April, Madison's case was resolved too. The judge gave Derek the same ruling: 2 hours per week of supervised visitation with Lily. Derek missed half of those visits too. He was losing interest. He was realizing that being a father was work. It was not proof of anything. It was just work. Carmen and Madison became close friends. They met for coffee every week. They texted every day. They supported each other. Madison brought Lily to meet the triplets. The children played together. Emma liked holding the baby. Lucas was scared of the baby at first, but eventually warmed up. Sophie sang to the baby. In May, Carmen took the triplets to the park. It was a Saturday, a beautiful spring day. Teresa came. Rosa came. Madison came with Lily. They spread blankets on the grass. The triplets ran around. They went on the swings. They climbed on the jungle gym. They laughed and shouted and played. Carmen watched them. She felt something she had not felt in a long time. Peace, real peace. Derek was still part of their lives, but he was fading. He missed more visits than he attended. He was proving exactly what Carmen always knew. He did not actually want to be a father. He just wanted to win. And he had lost. Madison sat down next to Carmen on the blanket. She said, "Thank you for everything." Carmen said, "You do not need to thank me." Madison said, "Yes, I do. You helped me see the truth. You helped me leave him. You have been a better friend to me than anyone." Carmen said, "You would have figured it out on your own." Madison said, "Maybe, but you made it easier." They sat in comfortable silence. Sophie ran over. She said, "Mommy, can we come to the park again tomorrow?" Carmen said, "Maybe next week, baby." Lucas said, "I want to bring Grandma next time." Sophie said, "And Aunt Rosa, and Madison, and baby Lily." Carmen said, "We will bring everyone." The day ended. They packed up the blankets and toys. They walked to their cars. Carmen buckled the triplets into their car seats. She drove home. She made dinner. She gave the children baths. She read them bedtime stories. She tucked them into their beds. She kissed each forehead. Emma, Lucas, Sophie. She whispered, "I love you," to each of them. Carmen sat in the living room. The apartment was quiet. She picked up her phone. She looked at the pictures from today. Emma laughing on the swings, Lucas building a sand castle, Sophie singing to baby Lily. Her children were happy. That was all that mattered. Carmen opened her social media. She posted one of the pictures. She wrote a caption, "My everything." Within minutes, comments appeared. Heart emojis from her Aunt Lucia. Beautiful children from her cousin Maria. Love you all from Teresa. Carmen smiled. She turned off her phone. She walked to her bedroom. She looked at the picture of Robert on her nightstand. She picked it up. She said quietly, "Thank you for loving us, even though it was only for a little while. You showed me I was not broken. You showed me I could be loved. Thank you." She put the picture back. She got into bed. She closed her eyes. She thought about the past 5 years, the pain, the shame, the hiding. Derek's words had controlled her life for so long. Broken, defective, infertile. But those words had no power anymore. Everyone knew the truth now. She had 3 beautiful children. She had a family who loved her. She had friends who supported her. She had a life worth living. Carmen fell asleep smiling. She dreamed of her children, of their futures, of everything they would become. She dreamed of teaching them that they were enough, that they were loved, that nobody could ever make them feel broken. Because they were not broken. They were perfect, just as they were. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen